Welcome to the new slimmed down property quorum. Yes, everybody seems to be off everywhere at the moment. I'm afraid you're going to have to make do with us three. Of course, the incomparable Juliet Babulal of Gallagher and the incandescent Hamish McClay of Search and Convey. And to you, hopefully, you'll enjoy today's mission. Today's mission is to talk about red tape and roadblocks. What's holding up home sales? And I'm sorry, as per usual, Hamish, straight under the bus you go.
Well, it gives great opportunity to speak on a subject which intermingles between what Juliet is actually sort of doing and what we try and do on our side of the business to sort of help the sort of work that Juliet does. A lot of very complicated things, and for that purpose, there's an awful lot of legal. I was going to say legal stuff. That's probably a good way of putting it, because it makes it simple in my mind then that I couldn't comprehend. There is just so much of it. Juliet and if you like, the conveyancing solicitors, those professionals out there, they spend many years studying it, and of course that they gain the experience and the knowledge through what they're actually doing, and all they need is data in front of them that they can actually sort of rely on. Now, in order to support that, what we're meant to do is to gather that data. Now, it's quite interesting. The one of the particular sort of groups today, there was a nice little quote. I'll come up with this. The research from the Open Property Data Association, and for those who like the OPDA sort of type, found that people thought the house buying process took 88 days on average. But when asked how long did it actually take to exchange contracts once your offer was accepted, the average answer was 124 days. Now, it depends how you measure the days. Are they working days? Are they business days? Do they include the weekend? It's very hard to actually sort of figure it out. But one of the amusing things to me is that two contributors to what actually sort of goes on and the discussions in the Open Property Data Association. One of them happens to be the Law Society, and the other one happens to be HM Land Registry. So Land Registry. Now, these people are very good at creating forms which are not easy to fill in. And you can spend ages filling in these forms. And then, of course, how do you send them? Because they're not online for you to be able to fill in and complete. So what do you do with them? Do you scan them in? 16-page document, scanning that in for your UTA form, having spent goodness knows how. So all of these things are just taking longer and longer. And they in themselves, that particular way of handling data is so outdated. Yet it does slow it down. And in particular, there was because we work with councils an awful lot to gather our information. And one particular item, which Juliet knows well, we contacted the council because they keep changing. You cannot rely on what they say on the website because they don't change the information on the website. So you have to contact them. Some of them can't speak to you on the phone. The only way you can contact them is by sending an email. And then when you send an email, it takes 8 days to come back.
Oh, my goodness.
That is 5 working days. I mean, you think at the moment we've got all these bank holidays and things, which make it even worse. And they don't work hard to catch up on that. People like Juliet and myself, we have to try and process things. It doesn't matter whether the bank holidays are there or not. The work still needs to be done. So just that very basic side of things can add the odd week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So it doesn't surprise me at all. But I'm just wondering in the first place where people get the information from as to how long it's going to take. I don't know. That's a mystery to me.
Juliet, I'm a muggle, so you're going to have to explain it to me. Where the hell are all these roadblocks? Why does it take so damn long?
Well, see, this is where I think there's so much misconception, because you've got the statistics saying, look, the average house can be exchanged in 80 days. Okay. Now, if you're a cash buyer and you're going to take views on everything and you don't need searches and you don't need anything and you've got your cash ready, you can get an exchange and completion in a day, in a couple of hours, because you don't need anything. If, however, you are getting a mortgage, you're going to have to satisfy that mortgage provider in relation to the normal criteria. So you're going to need searches. Now, let's say, for example, you've decided, yes, I need searches. And I've said to you, I got a quote from Hamish and I said, this is the quotation, but you haven't sent, you take a week to send me monies to pay for those searches. Then is it our fault that the searches are delayed, or is it with you, the purchaser, that you failed to send me those monies? And what I think people fail to realize is that nothing in conveyancing gets done at the click of a hat. It really means that there are processes, and the ones that play the blame game are the ones who do not understand or truly understand the processes. And it's absolutely fact, because I've got people who send me monies for searches, for example, and they expect the results tomorrow. And that's just not how it works, because when I put Hamish in funds, he then has to contact all of these individuals. And it's really dependent on how the respective councils process things. So you can't say, well, Barnet gave me a search in 8 days, but Oxford is taking 5 weeks. It may mean that they haven't got the manpower for it. So when we talk about roadblocks, I think we really need to look at our particular role in the transaction. And I said to a client, funnily, I try very hard so that the delay isn't with me. So as soon as I get, it's like pass the parcel. As soon as you get something, what do you need to do with that parcel until you get to exchange and completion? And there's always something. And if your matter is particularly complicated, so you've got people, they get a drainage search done and it says they've got sewers running through their property. What that means is that the local authority or the statutory body, the sewer body, can come and dig up your backyard because there are pipes running through your garden. Is that something you want your solicitor to explore, or are you happy that one day they can just come and dig up your backyard? The issue that we've got here as well is that we've got a negligent suing mentality. So I had someone the other day call me up and said, our basement flooded and we want to sue our solicitor. I said, why do you want to sue your solicitor? What has your solicitor done? Did you do a particular search to find out about the flooding? Have you spoken to your insurer? Why is it? I mean, that's, I guess, my bugbear. Why is it that solicitors' PI insurance is the sort of backup for everything? But when you talk about roadblocks and red tape, I think sometimes it's misconstrued. And don't get me wrong, there are people in this industry who will delay things, but if there is a red tape because the lawyer is preventing you from making a mistake or has to do further investigations, then that's only in the consumer's interest. It's only in the purchaser's interest for that red tape to be there. So agreeably, there are roadblocks. And I think, to summarize, in terms of what I would say for all, look at your role in the transaction. Have you got something to do that you've not yet done that's causing that roadblock? And if it's not you, then find out who in the chain is causing that delay and chase them for a response. It goes back to, again, choosing the right professionals, choosing the right parties. You've got a surveyor that you need to get a survey from. If you're buying a property and you want to convert that property into an HMO, you've got to convey that to your lawyer. If you haven't conveyed that and you just say, look, I want to purchase this property, and it turns out that there's a restrictive covenant preventing you from converting it to an HMO, how can you go to that solicitor and say, you never told me this? So is that a roadblock? So communication is so key in terms of a purchaser understanding what they're buying a property for and communicating that to the various parties in the transaction.
I think we've said this sort of thing before. To thine self, look first before pointing fingers at others, I think you're saying. And I think you're probably quite right. Hamish, I remember there was a joke. Oh, not that. I remember, what did I say? It was a solicitor told me. His mother wanted to get her garden dug over, but he was was living far too far away. So he mentioned that there might be a drainage problem running across the middle of it, and the water board came and dug up the garden. And he said, "Oh no, he got it wrong." And he rang his mother and said, "There you go, your garden's dug up." I mean, the point is, I'm trying to make is that if there are multiple agencies involved, it's sometimes very difficult to point out which one is sitting on the process and stopping it from moving forward.
That that is indeed the challenge, and we have this 2080 rule. Unfortunately, in order to carry out the conveyancing process, you need to actually go through 100%. Now, if you can get 80% of the results fairly quickly, it's the 20% which are actually going to cause that sort of challenge in the end.
Yes, because the conveyancing is kind of like an absolute thing, isn't it? It's either is or it ain't.
But I think that there is a challenge, and there's almost an expectation. It's a little bit like Amazon in a way. If you want to buy something from Amazon, you just press a button here and you press a button there and you press, but you get what you actually press the buttons for.
Right.
Now, you can't actually do that in conveyancing anyway, because as Juliet just sort of intimated, there's different reasons why people are buying properties. Right. There's different aspects to the property which you get, because if you don't have a basement, it's not going to flood. So you don't need to have anything about the basement on that particular. So it's a matter of actually trying to get if you like, the right level of information together for it. Because if somebody's wasting their time ticking boxes saying, "Oh, there is no basement," and whatever, I think I might have mentioned this once before. I was doing some work on somebody was selling a little bit of land to keep their pony on, and I was sent the form that had to be compiled was asking where the how many electrical points there were in the kitchen on that particular piece of land. But it was submitted by the buyer's solicitor. And this particular form, with its goodness knows how many, I mean, Juliet knows how many, because I don't need to fill in forms like that. It's bad enough the forms I need to fill in sometimes. Right. I mean, one of the great, just for an example, and this was only yesterday. I'd had to fill out these forms because I was carrying out transaction, and I get an email coming back at just gone 5 yesterday evening. I've been trying to get in touch with you. What's your address? Because your address on your email is different to the address that you actually put on the forms. Well, I didn't thought the address on the forms were appropriate, but have they carried out that transaction? No, because I haven't been able to get in touch with them this morning to speak to them about it. So just silly little things like that, because people aren't looking at it. They aren't. This is what we find with the councils, of course. Some of them are very, very good, but some of the others, like another one this week, spend hours filling in all of these forms, and they say, "Well, the forms haven't come through, but your money's you paid for it. Can you please email me them separately?"
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, in shameless plug, earlier in the week we had Ipsa Kind of Magic, which is another channel, and I learn on these things amazing stuff, such as the chancellery nonsense. You know, the bit that you might have to pay for a church roof, and if you haven't filled in the right form, suddenly 6 months later that can come back and bite you, and suddenly you've got to fork out $5,000 to help, you know, the minister pay for his slate. It's not knowing which bits are holding up what. I think it just seems to be. I know Juliet's going to shoot me down for this. It just seems to be overly complicated. Juliet, do you not think?
Well, I'm in this day in, day out, so it's not complicated for me, and it's my job to ensure that you're not confused by the process. And I think when people get confused, it's because the retained professional, I won't name professional, but the retained professional isn't doing what they're supposed to do. That is clear, because a chancel search only costs about £24, for example. So for the sake of forking out for a chancel search up front to see whether there's a liability on a property, to save you monies later on, why not just do it? Why not just get a chancel search? So it's one of those things. You have to be led by the right professional so that you're not confused, because if you're confused, I'm not doing my job. And if you feel like you're just there jangling and you're not kept in the loop in terms of timescales and milestones in your transaction, again, the communication is off. And that's why I stress on working with someone who is communicating in a way that you understand. If you're dealing with a first-time buyer as opposed to somebody who's a portfolio owner, you're dealing with two different categories of people, and you then need to convey information in a way that your client understands, so they're not lost in the process. But when they go online and they Google everything under the sun and they're seeing, oh yeah, we need to exchange within 80 days, and they go to a particular lender who takes 80 days to issue a loan agreement, loan documents, etc., there's no way you're going to exchange in 80 days. So that is in itself misleading. So another piece of advice, don't go and look at everything that you see on Google. Know your source when you're reading up these articles. There's so many consumer forums, and what applies to one may not apply to you. So you've got to be careful with what you find online. And if you're confused, go to your lawyer, go to your advisor and say, what does this mean?
Hamish, would you care to take us home, please, sir?
Well, I think we can take on board that very last piece of information that Juliet advised. Speak to your lawyer. And this is the challenge. Many people aren't able to speak to their lawyer. They haven't been able to communicate. They haven't been able to tell them exactly what they wanted, because they've gone through a box ticking exercise to find out the cheapest way they can get their conveyancing done. And that is not going to be the best solution for you. However, do try and actually get that person to speak to and tell them what you are doing. Once you've told them that, it makes such a significant difference. And Juliet and I, we spend time to try and find what is the best route that you can take so people don't fall over. Let's cover up the basic sort of potholes. Let's get those out of the way before you get to the road that is actually completely blocked, because sometimes it will be. But you need to go through the process the right way, and working with the right people will enable you to actually do that. And this is what, if you like, it's a shame in a way, but that Wendy isn't with us today, because she's a great one with helping to talk people through the whole of the process, even before they start buying the house, because she would explain, this could be a roadblock, however, you do it this particular sort of way. And then she will point you in the direction of working with the right conveyancer, the right solicitor, the right lawyer. So it is as complicated sometimes as we want to make it, but it's not as simple as sometimes some people would like us to believe it is, particularly those who want to get us buying from them in sort of large quantities. If you like, that's dead easy. Press the buttons, get your, we'll have that one. It doesn't work like that. You didn't buy a house like that, really, or do you?
Well, who knew that the single largest expense that most people have in their lifetime could be a slightly more complicated affair than perhaps Google would let you believe. However, banging the same drum as we've banged many times before, it's useful to surround yourself with a team of people that you can trust, who will get on with the job and not sit on things. It only remains for me to thank Juliet Babulal of Gunn & Cook, and of course Hamish McClay of Search and Convey, and to all of you out there, find the right people to do the right job, and you're sure to get the results in the most timely manner you can. I beseech all of you to keep your feet on the ground in these troubled times. Keep reaching for the sky, but try and look after that mental health. Until next week, bye-bye.